Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Grandstand Gurus, the number one sports podcast on the Explosion Network. I am one of your hosts. My name is Jack Kruse. I'm joined again by the original trio, Ashley Hobley and Kieran Marchant. Welcome back, fellas.
Whoop, whoop.
Good to be back.
Couple of weeks without you. It's good to have the band back together.
It's been nice. It's going to be a nice, good podcast.
Good fun.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, it is. Sports. Ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, this is the sports podcast of the Explosion Network, a podcast where a few mates get together every week. We don't have an athletic bone between us, but we do love to talk about sports, and that is exactly what we're going to do for you today. So we're going to jump right into it this week. No mucking about. Ashley, what was your highlight from the weekend sport?
Easily the Brisbane Lions victory over Essendon. I mean, coming to get back
fantastic?
from 27 points down in the final term to get a 8-point victory. It was pretty sweet. Seeing Eric Hipwood and Harris Andrews and all of the younger guys step up, it's been pretty impressive to watch.
No doubt. Yeah. No, it was a great win. I watched the end of that. It was I was barracking for Brisbane because I needed Essendon to lose for us to still have the hope of making the final. So I was barracking hard. Plus Essendon, as you all know, are my third most hated team. So and you always love to see an underdog getting up. So I was very happy for you, Ashley Hobley.
Thank you.
Kieran?
I'm going to bring a new highlight that I've never said before. Hawthorn won again. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row. How great is that?
Well done.
I'm so proud.
You beat the Pies.
So happy.
Very good. I was less enthused about that win, but still good for you.
What about you, Jack? What was your AFL highlight? The Dogs
Did you have an
this
AFL
week?
highlight?
Yeah.
How about the doggies?
My highlight from the week's sport was the fantastic fall from grace of the Melbourne Football Club. They've had a couple of good weeks. They knocked off the doggies. They got a bit lippy on social media. They called out Jason Johannesson, and then it all came crashing down on them. Do you know what they call that? They call that karma, boys. That's what we call that. The karma train came through, and a choo-choo, all aboard, and bam, cop that.
And
so they were
6 weeks.
They were demoralised on the weekend by the Swans. Tom Bugg got his right whack and got 6 weeks. He should have got 12. And it's obviously been revealed that over the weekend that 4 of their players were unavailable for selection because they went out drinking after a game and broke team rules. So I think the Demon boys got a little bit ahead of themselves. They all sort of thought that there was premiership talk and all that, which I always thought was way too premature. And they are quite an immature bunch. And it's funny. Melbourne, as everyone knows, is my most hated team in the AFL, and people are always, when I tell people that, they go, "That's such a weird choice. Like, nobody hates Melbourne. There's such a, they've always been down the bottom." Blah, blah, blah. Now people are starting to see why.
Team.
Now people are starting to see why I hate Melbourne. So yeah, but no, that wasn't my highlight from the week. But you provoked me, so
That's fine.
you got it.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
My highlight from the weekend was Jeff Horn winning the welterweight world title in the world boxing title. A fantastic boxing match up at Brisbane, Suncorp Stadium. He beat Manny Pacquiao. I watched that. Very apparently. I watched that entire fight from the first round to obviously the last bell. I'm not a boxing guy, so I don't know, the ins and outs of the rules and that. Obviously, I'm a big UFC guy. I watched that fight, and I thought Horn won easy. Other than the 9th round where Pacquiao nearly had him, nearly finished him up. I thought he controlled the fight. I thought he pushed the pace. I thought he landed more. Apparently, everyone didn't think that was the case. And like I said, I'm not a big boxing dude, but I did think that he won that fight just as from a pure fight standpoint. But apparently everyone else thinks it was wrong and it's corrupt and he shouldn't have won and it was rigged and everyone was getting a little bit upset about it. So I, for one, say good on you, Horny, attaboy, the Hornet.
Yep.
And we very may well have a second world champion in combat sports this week. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Alrighty, let's kick off with your topic, Kieran, what have you
My
brought
topic?
to the table for
Okay,
us
let's
this week?
go. We are at that point in the AFL season, and this is the closest, most unpredictable season that I think there's ever been in AFL. It is
is true.
so close. It is so open. Anybody could make it. So I want the professional opinions of 3 absolute spuds to predict what the top 8's going to be this year.
You calling me a spud?
I'm calling all 3 of us spuds because,
Oh,
you
good.
know,
Accurate.
we've all had moments. But what is our top 8 for the final? So I'm going to start off. I've got a really quick reel off, and I'm going to go from 8 to 1. And they can be as crazy and wacky as you like. So my number 8 is going to be Hawthorn, just for the hope of it. I know it's not going to happen, but
Yes.
8 Hawthorn sneaking in. We've got a really rough journey home. But I feel like it should be, the rest of the way through, should be really good. At number 7, I've got West Coast Eagles. They're in and out of form really badly, but I think they're just going to be able to cling on to what they've got left. So my number 6 is going to be Richmond. I think Richmond's going to finish about 6th. And really kind of hang in there. Maybe, hopefully they don't have any weird or random tie-ins or tangles throughout it, but hey, see what happens there. At number 5, I'm going to say something weird. I'm going to say Melbourne at number 5, and you're going to hate me for it. But I think Melbourne's got a chance. I think there's some weird goings on in Melbourne, and they've got some injuries, but I feel like they're looking at their run home. Their run home is really steady. And I don't see how it can get worse. They could just be Melbourne and go really badly. But other than that, there doesn't look to be such a bad thing. Okay, after 5 for Melbourne, let's go. Number 4 is going to be Port Adelaide. I think Port Adelaide looking reasonably good this season. They also have had consistency problems, but I think they're going to be able to pull through it. And then number 3, I'm going to say Adelaide. The Kruse, they've had a cracking start to the season, but I think it's towards this end portion of the season. I think a lot of the teams have their number now in terms of tagging Sloan effectively, and the statistics of not letting them go over 100 goals seems to be the way to
points.
win.
100 points, yeah.
Yeah, 100 points, not 100 goals. Holy crap. 100 points.
Very effective at getting them under 100 goals.
I'd be so impressed if they got over 100. With that, number 2, I'm going to have Geelong. They are looking to be a good team again. They've got Joel Selwood coming back in this week, and then as long as they can stay fit as their majority unit, they'll be good. And number 1 for the season, I do believe will be the Giants. I think they could have possibly been first last year and even won the grand final last year had they not fallen to the Doggies. And just looking at their team's not even in their prime at the moment, and they are missing quite a few heavy guns, but they are quite fantastic this season. So disagree with me. I'm going to keep a tally of who's said what so far, and then we shall see after. Revisit this in round 23 to see what's the go. So. Jack, top 8.
Yeah.
Read it to me.
I'm going to start I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. So I think, I also think GWS will finish on top. I just think they've got a fairly not favourable, because no one really does, except I think Richmond and Melbourne have got good sort of runs home. But I just think they're the form side, as long as they can keep. For them, the most important thing is that Mumford stays on the park. I think he's their most important player. 2 years ago, when he got injured halfway through the season, I actually called out and said that without Mumford, and they were flying at that point in time, I said that without Mumford, they won't play finals, and they didn't. He's definitely their most influential player, their most important player. So as long as he, there's probably 3 players in their team that are really important to them. One is Toby Green. He's as much as I hate him, he's a fantastic footballer and can turn a game. And then their captain, Callan Ward. He's just a grunt midfielder. Doesn't get any recognition or plaudits. for what he does week in, week out, but he's a fantastic footballer. And he doesn't get enough recognition. He just does a job every week. So as long as those three players can stay fit, I see them finishing on top of the ladder. Their forward line, they've got so many dudes that can go in and out of there. They've got tall forwards playing in the knee full. They've obviously got Patton and Cameron. If one of those guys goes down, I don't think it's the end of the world because they can plug that hole. They've got Rory Lobb who can go in there and pinch hit in the ruck. I think Mumford, like I said, Mumford stays fit. I think they'll finish on top. Number 2, I think the Crows. I just think they're too hard to beat at home, which will be evident by. Yes, they did that, and they did it very well. But that was a flash in the pan. I think maybe they got a little bit too ahead of themselves. I don't see them losing at home again for the rest of the year. Fortunately, we play them this weekend, so I don't anticipate us to be able to knock them off. But that would be fantastic if we could. I think they'll stay in number 2. Number 3, Geelong will stay at number 3. Again, a quality team. They can keep. So the only time they look like not winning games comfortably is when Selwood is not in the team with Dangerfield. So those two guys are a special unit, and they seem to be getting. Last year it was very much a 2-man show, and if Selwood and Dangerfield don't fire, they weren't getting the job done. But this year's been a little bit different. They've been able to get the wins even, and obviously they had a draw on the weekend, but without Selwood, so they didn't obviously win that one. But they've done. They lost Selwood in the first minute the week before and came back from 5 goals down to knock off Fremantle. So Selwood and Dangerfield are very important to that team, but they do have a pretty even spread. So I think they'll stay in 3rd. In 4th for me will be Port Adelaide. I think they jump Richmond because I think Richmond are pretenders, and when it counts, they can't get the job done. So I think Port again will be tough to beat at home. Port have got a really good percentage as well. They've got the second best percentage in the league behind Adelaide, really healthy at 131. So I think they'll jump Richmond. Richmond will be in 5th. They've got a pretty favourable run home, so they'll stay there. 6th place, I think you'll have West Coast. Again, they're pretty flaky, but they were impressive on the weekend getting the job done over in Melbourne. So they have shown that they can win in Melbourne if they need to. So they'll stay in 6th. 7th spot, the Western Bulldogs. I think the way I see it playing out in my mind is that we will power through. We will have a really good showing against the Eagles. Against the Crows this week. I think we'll get beat, but I think we'll have a red hot crack, and I think they'll set us up to run home. And I think we'll be hard to beat in the back end. That's obviously that's wishful thinking, but honestly, I think we can as long as we can get that belief back and have some players really take a good hard look at themselves and pull their fingers out. I think we can still play finals. And like last year, all we need to do is make the 8 and we can win it. And then I think in 8th spot you'll have the Sydney Swans. I think they'll sneak in. They're the form team of the competition. They've won 4 in a row. They've won, I think, 7 of their last 8. They're flying. So I think they'll stay in 8th spot. They're just they're a quality team, and they were always going to come. It just took them 6 weeks to get going, but they're only outside the 8 by game. So they'll jump back in soon. So the 2 teams for me that miss out are St Kilda will drop out. I just don't see them being consistent enough. And Melbourne will miss out. They'll I think the backside's fallen out of Melbourne this week. I think they've just been found out a little bit. They've gotten ahead of themselves. They've got they're going to be without Jack Viney for a number of weeks.
4 to 6.
They're with Jack Watts is out, Hogan is out, Salem is out. Their captain, their other Jones is out. They've got the 4 blokes who are suspended. Tom Bugg's gone for 6 weeks. So they're bare bones. And I think they sort of had a really good run. They won their 4 in a row. The backside fell out on Friday night, and I think they're going to come crashing back down to earth, which is going to be muchos joyous to watch. So that's my top 8. So you got GWS, Adelaide, Geelong, Port, Richmond, West Coast, Bulldogs, and Sydney.
I agree. I agree with a lot of you. And I actually thought halfway through yours, I literally went, I forgot Sydney. And that was like my idea then was like, no, there's no way Sydney don't make the 8. And that's just because of my wishful thinking about Hawthorn. Ash, what have you got for us?
Okay,
Is Brisbane Lions going to finish?
Yep, number 8, Brisbane Lions. No. So I went through the AFL.com's currently got a ladder predictor at the moment. So I just went through all the games and random sort of tipped who I think was going to go through each round. So this is the top 8 that I came up with. Number 1, Adelaide. Number 2, GWS. Number 3, Geelong. And number 4, Port Adelaide, which is the top 4 that we've all consistently thought we're probably going to end up with.
Give me that one more time. So you got
Adelaide, GWS, Cats, and Port Adelaide.
Yep.
I just don't think Adelaide will hang on. I just don't see them hanging on for the season.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty tight, I think, the minor premiership. Whether GWS maybe rest a couple of players towards the end of the season, prep themselves for finals. But so the bottom half, I've got somehow the Dogs ended up at 5.
What?
Attaboy.
I know.
Attaboy.
What? Crazy.
It could happen. It's only what? I predict they're going to win.
We're only one game off 5th spot, so it's not like we're miles.
Yeah, it's
we
not-
are miles behind.
it's not
It's the thing. That's the
crazy.
thing, and I need to get my head out of that mindset because at the minute it's literally like
everybody is in it. I think they're going to win 6 of the last 8, so that's not impossible, but
Thank you, Ashley. That makes me feel nice inside.
no problem. So number 6, Sydney Swans. I think they're the form team. Hard to see them getting beaten towards the end of the season unless they get hit by major injuries. And number 7, I got Essendon, and sneaking in at number 8 is West Coast.
Essendon.
And yes. So St Kilda, Hawthorn, St Kilda, Richmond, and Melbourne all drop out of the 8 at the moment.
Wow.
I think. Yeah.
Richmond, that's the big one. So
Yeah,
they're
I think
4th at the moment.
they just have a habit of losing the close ones, and I think
They've got
this
what's their
competition
run
is
home
so
like?
close.
what is that? I'll pull it up. 2 seconds. Let me go fix
That's an issue.
this.
I like that 8 though. I like that 8. That's a.
Well, I thought
That's
you
a
would.
good 8. Like that's a very good 8.
Yeah.
Okay, so as long as this loads, Richmond's run home is we're on round 15 or is it 16 coming up? It is so
round
they're just
16 coming up.
round 16 coming up. So they have St Kilda at Etihad, they have Lions, they have Giants, they have Suns, they have Hawthorn, they have Geelong, they have Freo, they have St Kilda again. I don't think that's the easiest run home.
No, it's
Like,
not super hard.
A couple
but
of those
there-
are away as well, so like Fremantle and
There's a few 50-50s in there for sure.
Yeah.
And you're right, Ash. You're similar to me. I mean, I don't think they'll drop out, but I think they're, I think they're pretenders, and I don't think they'll,
I just don't think
they'll
they can. I just don't see them playing out tough games. Like, they always seem to break in the last 2 minutes,
yeah.
which is an issue.
That's a bit of an issue.
How did
They
just
did
looking
well
at
against
doggies,
Port.
How do you guys have out of the remaining games? You have 4, pretty much 5 home games because the last game of the season is a Hawthorn home game, but it's at Etihad.
Because
They're premiers, that's why they get the favour.
well, no, because we played. That's not true at
Was
all.
it like last season? You had like the whole start of the season was just you at home.
Yeah, I think we had like 7 of the first 8 at Etihad, and the other one was at the MCG. No, well, in the first, well, let me say here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So in the first 10 rounds, we played interstate 4 times, and I count Geelong as an interstate game because it pretty much is.
The Cattery is a really weird environment if you're going to
yeah.
go down there.
Yeah. We played and then we've gone up to Sydney 2 weeks after that, and we've played the last 2 in Melbourne, the last 3 in Melbourne, sorry, at Etihad. So and we go to Adelaide this week. So we've still got to travel interstate twice for the rest of the year. We've still got to play Gold Coast in Cairns, which is our home game, but we have that deal with the Queensland government to play in Cairns once a year, and we have to go to the Gabba 2 weeks after that. So we go to Queensland 2 weeks, and within the space of 3 weeks. So, which I look at our run home, and I don't see us beating Adelaide this week. But like I said, I think we'll be competitive. I think it'll start our run back up. Then we play Carlton, which we should win. We play Gold Coast. We haven't lost in Cairns, so we should win that game. We should beat Essendon at Etihad. In theory, we should beat Brisbane, but it is at the Gabba. And then we play GWS, Port Adelaide in Melbourne, and Hawthorn. So they're all three of those 50-50 games. So we can definitely still play finals. Whether or not we do is obviously another question. But it'll be very interesting to see. I still have faith. I just
another really quick question, and I've been thinking about the last couple of weeks. There's been a lot of it's been brought up a lot recently about teams playing X amount of games in X many days. A lot recently that there's
6-day breaks and that kind of thing.
6-day breaks. Like, it hasn't seemed to be as mentioned as much previous seasons as it has this season. Is there just more? Is it just the scheduling this season that's pushing? Like, I think they said Melbourne's had like 4 games in 18 days or something.
Yeah, Collingwood had a similar thing earlier in the year. They had obviously Anzac Day or something, and then a few others like that. So yeah, there's been a few scheduling sort of anomalies this year with a few clubs getting multiple 6-day breaks. Last year we had 3 in a row.
It feels like we've had more Thursday games this year as well, so that's kind of added to it.
Yeah, we've had a couple of Thursday games, a couple of Monday games, which do throw things out a little bit. So Queen's birthday, I think, was a Monday, which obviously throws it out. Anzac Day was a Monday, or was it Tuesday this year? Anzac Day was Tuesday.
Anzac Day was Tuesday.
It was Tuesday.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of that, and then we have like that block in the season with the 5 weeks in a row of Thursday night games.
Yep.
Which throws that out also. So there's a lot of the AFL's tinkering with it. Thursday night footy seems to be a winner. They're still getting good crowds. They're getting great
good
viewership.
TV ratings.
Yeah, so I think they'll stick with that. I think 5 is probably enough. I like how they do it in the middle of the season. They just give you a block of spreading it out a little bit. So it's a lot of footy, but it's good. I think we need to get away from the whole, and we're sort of opening another sort of kettle of fish here, but we need to get away from the whole, there has to be multiple games on a Saturday, because it definitely doesn't. I don't mind having no games, having 3 games on a Saturday, 4 games on a Saturday, an early game, a mid sort of afternoon game, and then 2 night games. I don't think we need 5 games. Even 3 games on a Saturday is fine for me. 1 in the day, 2 at night. Like it just breaks up a little bit. And then 2 or 3 on a Sunday.
Because you always get those crappy annoying times where you're flicking between 2 games because you've started one game but another game started towards the end of it, and it's
exactly. Yeah. So they're mucking around with the fixture. I like it spread out. I don't mind having, because I don't do super coach and that kind of thing anymore. I don't really I don't mind that
you don't notice
spread all the way. I don't really have too much in at stake as far as when the round starts and finishes and that kind of thing goes, which is the only real reason I can think of wanting games to be sort of over the rounds to be over quicker.
Well, thank you very much for your predictions. I'll keep track of them, and we will return to this on the eve of finals, probably during the bye week, and go through it and see what happens.
Excellent. Switching codes, we're gonna have a bit of a chat about NRL now. Ash, you want to talk a little bit about a selection from Origin?
Yeah, there's a bit of an odd selection. Well, I would say odd selection for Queensland. They picked Ben Hunt on the bench. Now, if you don't know, about 3 weeks ago, he was demoted to the reserves grade by Brisbane. So to suddenly come back and be selected for Origin is kind of surprising, that sudden turnaround. Probably picked more on potential than actual form, especially when you've got a guy like Daly Cherry-Evans who's been playing pretty fantastic football, probably at the same level that he was playing when he was winning the premiership with Manly and playing State of Origin. But it feels like he hasn't been selected because of political reasons, like team environment sort of stuff. Like famously,
what's that?
Back in when he was last selected, and when Cripper Cronk was injured, Jonathan Thurston said that I'll just pull up the quote here. Thurston said that Cronk's strength was his ability to get the best out of his teammates, whereas Daly Cherry-Evans was known for his individual brilliance. So, there's always been rumours about whether Cherry-Evans has rubbed up some of the senior players in the Origin sides the wrong way, and whether that's been why he's
Bit of
been
a
left
selfish
out.
player, is he? Bit of like a bit of me.
Maybe,
bit of me time?
maybe. Well, not. He's a halfback, so it's hard to say. It's such a team sport, but yeah, I was wondering what you guys' thoughts are on maybe players not being selected on merit. I guess is the best way to word it.
Does player opinion about another player count that much in NRL and stuff with?
I mean, you've got to play
teams?
together, so I mean, you've got to. It's such a team dynamic, and I mean, especially Origin, where it's sort of you're relying on each other so much. I can understand if someone doesn't fit in that environment that they wouldn't be.
But as from my point of view as a coach, you want to pick your best 22.
Yeah, that's the
You
thing.
want to pick your best 22, and your best 22 better be mature enough and professional enough to put whatever difference they have aside and just play the game. Like, I don't quite understand that mentality of, we don't like him, so we're gonna dump him and not take him. It's like, if the state of origin matters that much to you, use that pride of the state of origin and believe in that more than your feelings towards one player, I guess, is my main thing, I guess.
I'm probably more of the opposite of that, and I think that team dynamic and team and quality, people's attitudes and qualities is almost just as important as form. So you can be the best player, skills, great form, everything fantastic, but if you've got a bad attitude and you bring that to a team, and maybe you're a bit of a you're a bit cocky or you're a bit arrogant or whatever it is that this guy's brought in that people aren't a fan of. If you're not a team player and you bring in a bad vibe into a team, that can destabilize an entire team. So just because you're a fantastic player doesn't mean you an automatic sort of start, as far as I'm concerned. So I think back to 2010, I believe, was the year when the Doggies sacked Ackermanis. And Jason Ackermanis, obviously, a character of the game, a fantastic player, Hall of Famer, legend, all that good stuff. But, quite a polarizing character, and was known for having those types of, opinions and being very outspoken and being a very arrogant kind of person around clubs. And it got him booted out of Brisbane. And it ultimately got him booted out of the Bulldogs, and that destabilised their entire season. The way he sort of carried on and that kind of thing. So what happened was there was already a bit of angst in the group. Stuff like, they asked him to stop doing his handstand. We're about team at the Bulldogs. We're not about individualism. We're all in the same boat. We're not about that. So if you could not do that, that'd be great. At some point in the season, after he'd been asked to stop, he went and did it. Because it's all about Acker. And then there was a lot of things going on. He was writing ridiculous articles, saying stupid things on radio, and basically got himself in trouble with the club a couple of times. They asked him to stop, doing certain things, stop writing certain things, and he just kept going, and it destabilized the group. And he got sacked from the club. And he was bringing a bad vibe into the team, and he's one of the most talented players to ever play the game.
Yeah.
But you bring that into a team environment, and you break that up, and you don't have a good harmony. It can count for nothing. All the skill in the world counts for nothing if you haven't got a good team environment.
I guess, yeah, and I understand where you're coming from with that, and I think in my mind it was running out a bit differently. It wasn't a player to that extent of what Ackermanis was doing, which is a really poor flow-on effect to your team and that. But if it's just a player that's doing a bit of sportsmanship or is hogging the ball or isn't playing as a team, it's a part of a coach's job to grow that in somebody instead of just writing them off, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that, but they can
I understand.
They can grow those things in the twos. They can grow those things in the twos, and that's why we have reserves. Players not doing the team thing, they're not doing what they're meant to be doing. They go back to the twos, and they come back to the ones they come back to Origin when they've done the things the coach asks. And that's as I've coached junior football and I've coached junior cricket, and that's sort of the philosophies that I go by. If you're not doing the team thing, If you're not doing the right thing, you're benched. You don't play. It's as simple as that. And I think a lot of professional sports are sort of the same way. It's less about individuals now and more about, the team, which is the way it should be. These are team sports. We're not playing tennis or golf here.
Okay, but I think it's a hard matter, especially when it's stuff like money's involved. You wouldn't bench, like, say for the NBA, if Steph Curry started being an absolute douchebag to his teammates. Are the Warriors going to bench him? Like, are they going to take him out? Or you're not paying somebody that much money to take them out of the game?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's hard to say.
I think you do still. Well, what do you think, Ash?
Oh, in the NBA, I think there's a lot of characters who are pretty like that, so I think it's a bit hard to say. Although Los Angeles just traded their point guard of the future, whatever his name was, because of team harmony issues. I think he snitched on one of the other players was the big story, who was about a cheating scandal or something from memory. But
snitches get stitches.
Yeah, so he all get shipped away pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I still, the NBA's, it's, I mean, that is a sort of different kettle of fish with that kind of thing. But I think, I still think you do. I still think team comes first. And, I've seen it happen many times where, star players get sent back if they're not doing the team thing. Ross Lyon famously did it years ago. He drops Nick Del Santo and Stephen Milne, I think it was, two, when they were in premiership contention. They had a couple of bad games. These guys weren't doing the team's thing. Then he dropped a couple of the stars because just sort of send a message and say, we won't accept mediocrity. We'll send you back and we'll make you find form. The Bulldogs coach, Luke Beveridge, has done a similar thing in his time at the Bulldogs. He's not willing to accept people not doing the team thing and not doing what's required of them, and no matter where they stand in this, where they are in the standings of the rankings or however you want to do it in the team, he'll send them back. He doesn't care. He's sent Jack McRae back to the twos. He's sent Stringer back to the twos. He sent Liberatore back to the twos. Like, he will drop players and he's not afraid to do it.
While you're on that, is Johannesson going to go back to the twos?
It's an interesting one. I'm not really sure which way they're going with this. It's a very, I don't know. He needs to step up, and so I watched him very closely on the weekend, and he was targeted pretty heavily, double teamed at times, tagged really heavily out of the game, constantly getting bumped and niggled and that kind of thing, and his body language was just shocking. His head was down. He was not in the game at all. Had a really poor game, as a lot of our players did. But I think it'd be good for him to fight through it. It's not like he's not doing the team things. He's just getting really heavily tagged, and he's trying hard, but his confidence is shot. And he's in the shadow of his former self. So I'd like for him to. I don't know. It's not. That's the thing. Like, he's not doing anything wrong. He's just not getting He's not getting to the ball. He's not able to. So he needs to work through that. He needs to fight through that. His teammates need to help him out more. It's sort of been said that he needs to look after himself. He needs to push through it and this, that, and the other. But I'm sort of more of the. It was hard watching on the weekend. Let's just put it that way. It was hard watching. It was hard sitting there and watching a guy getting basically sandwiched in between two blokes, bumped, constantly pushed around, jump and punch, jabs in the kidney, this kind of thing, and his mates standing there a couple of meters away letting it happen for the majority of the game. Like, they'd go in every now and then and remonstrate and that kind of thing, but it wasn't happening nearly enough in my opinion. So it was hard to watch. So I think he keeps playing. He's not doing the team things, but yeah, we sort of got off tangent a little bit on that.
As we
do when people bring up the Bulldogs. You know better than that.
Sure.
You should know better than that.
Any hint of the Bulldogs and Jack's going to go on a tangent. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's an interesting one. I'm of that belief that the team comes first. In most situations.
Yeah, it's more important than form or anything. Because I think about cricket and how many players have been not selected or have been selected on little to no form. Shane Watson being the most current player who comes to mind. And I'm always reminded of Usain Bolt, who apparently was a very good cricketer in his youth, and his father told him, don't play team sport. There's too much politics in the background. You'll never get selected on merit, which is
Just run really fast.
Yeah, so he was the fastest person. You can't compete with pure speed. It's just one-on-one, so that's always something that stuck with me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Cricket's an interesting sort of sport, and there's always probably, the one with the most politics and players, if you think back to Brad Hodge, probably, the most unlucky
You
cricketer
think of all the
ever to
players during that era who any other time would have been stars.
Brad Hodge
missed out.
made a double ton and was dropped 2 games later.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Ricky Ponting and Damien Martin were famous. I think it was Damien Martin were, buddies for a long time, and that was sort of why Damien Martin got his run. Simon Kadich is the other one that comes to mind.
Famously falling out with Clark.
Had a blow up with Michael Clark, and
even Michael Slater, he had a falling out with Steve Waugh and Adam Gilchrist, as far as from memory.
So all those guys, it affected their careers. Kadich never played Test cricket again after that incident. So it's that. Yeah, that is cricket's the worst for that kind of thing. There's always, it's that kind of sport. Do you know what I mean? Like the vibe around cricket clubs and teams is a very different vibe to that of a football team. It's a lot less harmonious. There's a lot more individual, because what cricket is a team sport. It is, very individualistic in that, while you're working as a team, you're also almost all working independently of each other. If you're batting, you're batting. You're batting, you're facing. You've got your partner at the other end, but you're batting. If you're bowling, you're bowling.
Yeah, there's a lot of individual accolades and stuff.
Yeah, exactly right. It's the most individual team sport, definitely. So it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
So do you think he'll get back in the team?
Probably. Well, obviously there's one game.
Now. It's done now. Yeah.
Done. Obviously, Cooper Cronk and Jonathan Thurston won't be there next year, so we'll just have to wait and see whether they bring him back without that halves dynamic to compete with.
Yes,
but if he's playing like he is this year, it'll be hard to see him missing out, especially with all the furore around him missing out this time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I did read that the coach did say that he will. It's his career, and it's not that his career's over. He'll be back in next year and all of that. So, very good. Okay, moving on. We're going to jump back on the AFL train for a little bit. I want to talk about something I touched on a little bit earlier. Over the weekend, there was an incident with Melbourne player Tom Bugg struck Callum Mills on Friday night in the game between the Sydney Swans and the Demons at the MCG. Hit him with a straight left, knocked him out pretty much. Mills was concussed, couldn't come back on the ground. It happened in the first couple of minutes, so effectively, this Melbourne player, because of his actions, took a Sydney player out of the game for the entire match, basically. And Sydney won, but they were with it. They were one down the entire game because of an act of physical violence, basically. So there's been a lot of talk. Obviously, Tom Bugg copped 6-week suspension at the tribunal, which was fantastic. I think the right call. 6 weeks, I think, is perfect considering Basher Hooley's sentence last week. But a lot of talk this week has been around whether the AFL should have a send-off rule or red card rule, where if there is an incident on field, something happens like this, a player takes another player out, that they get red carded, they get sent off. And I just wanted to, plain and simple, ask you guys what you think, whether you think the AFL needs to have this rule in these circumstances. A player can be sent off if he does the wrong thing.
My point of view, I really like the red card rule. I really like it from football because it's an instant repercussion to a not wanted behaviour into the game.
An unsportsmanlike act.
That's exactly the point. Exactly what I was trying to say. Unsportsmanlike act. I think that definitely needs to be implemented somehow with doing it in an AFL.
Yeah.
I guess my biggest thing is, and it's been what's shown over the last couple of weeks, the tribunal and the AFL need to sit down together and work out suspension time periods I don't know, it's supposed to be on a case-for-case basis, but are you really telling me when Jordan Lewis broke, I think it was Kruse's jaw, are you telling me that only... I don't know if it was Kruse. It was a Carlton player, broke his jaw, but got 3 weeks for it.
And Patrick Cripps.
Yeah, Cripps. Sorry, it was Cripps. Sorry. Yep. He broke his jaw, and you're telling me that's only 3 weeks? Compared to, say, Basher and now Tom Bug, who have got 4 and 6. Yes, there is intentional impact and everything there, but same with the Jesse Hogan when Jesse Hogan got 2 weeks. Is that really only worth 2 weeks? Because even stuff like they'll say everybody's history comes into it. Like Jordan Lewis got 3 because he's been a douchebag in the past and he's done things, and that was Jordan Lewis. And Hawthorn, of course.
Yeah.
But at the same point, are you telling me that Thomas Bug, yes, what Thomas Bug did was not good, and I'm not for that at all. But are you saying, did they also factor into Thomas Bug's 6 weeks? Did they factor in his record of never being reported? Are you telling me that if a player that had been reported did that, would have got more than 6 weeks for that? That's...
Yeah.
Well, to put it in perspective, I was just reading Barry Hall on his hit on Brendan's take.
He got 8.
He got
I believe,
7
right?
7 weeks.
7 weeks.
Was I read?
7,
Yeah. And with his record, that's pretty lenient.
Yeah, definitely. It's with that kind of thing. Just on the Hogan, Lewis ones, different sort of incidents. They were kind of in scuffles, which I think they take into account. Also, neither player was knocked out. So yes, Cripps had a broken jaw, but he was able to play out a fractured jaw. He was able to play out the game, as was Sam Rowe. Whereas Jed Lamb was knocked out by Basher Hooley, as was Callum Mills was knocked out by Tom Bug. So they grade those things on a different sort of... They generally sort of... The way the AFL looks at it is it's the result of what happens more so than the action itself. Like, if Basher Hooley had swung his hand back, smacked Jed Lamb in the head and Lamb just sort of got stunned and fell over, he might have only got a week or 2. But because he knocked him out cold, they really take that into consideration, especially with concussion
and then
that kind of
with
thing.
that on top of that, should injuries after the case, so after the actual sentencing of the weeks or suspension, should the postcoming injury information affect that again? Like, even for Jordan Lewis and Cripps was out for 4 weeks. Lewis only got suspended for 3. So Cripps was out longer than Lewis.
Didn't Cripps play the next week?
No, he was... I think when I was reading earlier today, he was out for 4 weeks.
Okay.
I
thought he played the next week.
Quote me on that. I might have played the next week, like a cheer.
Check your facts, for God's sake.
I did swear I did. Damn it.
We're
Tom
all
in this
spuds.
podcast.
I'm a punter.
It's true. We're not... Yeah, that's true. You're living up to the...
Not
Exactly.
an expert.
up to... Yeah, we're definitely not experts. You're living up to the name. So.
Exactly. But I think there's a lot of stuff in that rulings and disciplinary action that AFL and the tribunal and everybody need to sit down and work together and really nut it out.
Cripps didn't miss a game.
He didn't miss a game? Well,
Impressive.
fine. He didn't miss a game. Be like that. Fine. Use evidence
Damn
against
history.
me. Facts. Factoids.
Factoids. So they do. They take the injury into the result of the action into account as well. So, which is a big driving force behind these things. So you're for.
Yeah, I think the red card's a good system. I think it's a immediate effect, and it'll, if not, the suspensions afterwards go. All right, I've now affected my team for 6 weeks without me. Because no matter what anybody says, and I've read comments today that say otherwise, Thomas Bug is in Melbourne's best 22.
Yeah, definitely.
He's definitely in there. So he's effectively taking more of their best 22 away from him. But if his actions in that game stop him from playing out the rest of the game, then that's an immediate reaction that even if, like, say if Melbourne had gone on to win that game then, it would have looked in a different light compared to what had happened.
Yep. Ashley, what about you? How do you feel about the send-off rule?
Yeah, I've always felt like in AFL it's hard when those sort of incidents happen that there's no instant repercussion and that the team that the victim in that situation is at a disadvantage. They don't get anything out of it. I mean, the player gets suspended for 3 weeks. How's that helping the team that got a player knocked out and couldn't play for the rest of the game? I mean, yeah. So I don't know if they'll ever go for the red card. I think a more reasonable option is maybe they'll cut rotations. Would be like a sort of middle grounds to sort of keep it a bit fairer. But I think it would be a good idea, but I don't think the AFL will ever implement it.
Interesting. So you are both insane. Kidding me?
Wow. Okay.
All right. So I'm very much against the send-off rule, and I'm going to give you a few reasons why. Soccer is obviously the big sport in the world that has a send-off rule. Yeah. And what we find in a lot of soccer matches is that a player will get a tiny little, or will have not even any contact made with his body and will flail like a dead fish and fall down on the ground and, oh my God, I'm hurt, rolling around like a goose, pretending to be hurt. And a player gets red carded because of that. And it happens way too often, and it affects games way too much. You see it all the time.
I think it's a bit less now that the video has come into it.
It happens enough that it's an issue still. That players
AFL
fake it and players
it does happen in AFL. Who was the player the other week?
Exactly right. But players aren't getting sent off for it, right? So you put something in like that, a red card system, and you'll have players jumping around and flailing around and dropping at their knees and pretending to be hurt to try and they'll use it. AFL players are not stupid. You saw what Nick Riewoldt did on the weekend. They basically won the game for St Kilda by getting that 50-metre penalty. Did anyone else see this?
Yeah, I saw that. Was so dumb. That is I actually really hate that rule. That 50-metre rule. Like, not the 50 metres, but just like the rule that if a player just pass the ball back to another player in the full, then that's 50 metres?
The rule is fine, but the fact is that Nick Riewoldt did an unsportsmanlike act to win a free kick. And AFL players will go to that length to get players sent off. They'll use it as a tactic. And the other point is, who's doing the send-off? The umpires? They can't even get holding the ball right. You think they're going to be able to? You think they're going to be able to work out how to send off a player? What happens in a grand final when you have? What happens if the game, 2 weeks ago, West Coast versus Melbourne was a grand final, and Will Schofield doesn't even, bees nuts touch Clayton Oliver. Clayton Oliver takes a dive. Will Schofield gets reported for it. What happens in that instance? And the umpires, who can't even get holding the ball and deliberate out of bounds right, pull up a bloody red card and send this guy off in a grand final. What happens then?
I think.
Do you know what I mean? We can't even get the goal. We can't get the goal reviews right. How are they going to get sending players off? It's too big of a decision to be left to umpires to officiate. And then the other alternative is that we stop the game for 5 minutes like we do with the ridiculous score review while they review 10 different angles of footage, and you got one goose peanut up in the box watching a replay of 10 different angles with no angle is completely right, and they're going, oh, did he hit him? But did he hit him? This angle looks like he misses him. This angle looks like he hits him. The crowd's sitting there for 5 minutes waiting for them to make a decision, and they come out and they go, yeah, no, you're all right. You play on, no send off. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous idea. I think it cannot work for our game. It's no.
Okay, if it was implemented, would that incident on the end, would that be red card worthy in your opinion?
Which one?
Tom Bug,
Callum Mills. But if it was, yeah, absolutely, knocked the guy out.
Like if it was in the lower grade, yeah.
I think it has to be used in the red card.
They would have obvious.
They'd have to introduce yellow cards with them. But if there was going to be that kind of system with it, has to be the red card has to be the most serious precaution to not serious precaution, but like it must be something like extreme, a player got knocked out and seriously hurt because of it.
Kieran, our game is complicated enough without giving them 2 cards. You want to give them a yellow card as well.
Well, the yellow card can be equivalent
how
to
complicated?
reporting.
How much more complicated do we need? What happens when Razor Ray Chamberlain gets bloody colourblind and pulls out his red card instead of a yellow card and sends the player off for the game and then realises it was meant to be a yellow?
Professionals, then.
Turn it up.
Make our umpires professional.
Ridiculous.
Give them to the international level.
The other issue with this and this is one of my big issues with the AFL, is that every time something happens, we need to change a rule. Every time. Every single time we have to change a rule. It's too many, we have two high-speed collisions. Let's cut into changes. We've got, two players got injured in a game. Let's put a sub in. Two players accidentally ran on the ground at the same time. Let's have the interchange gates thing. Stupid rule. Bloody player gets knocked out. We have to put in a red card. Player took too long to take his kick. Let's put a shot clock in. Player used the shot clock to wind down the clock. Let's take the shot clock away. Player got tackled because he didn't take his kick well enough because there was no shot clock. Let's put the shot clock back. Every single time something happens in the AFL, they change the rules. Just leave the goddamn rules. Just leave it. Let them sort themselves out. It's hard enough for these umpires to do their jobs at the best of times. Spare me. Yeah, no, so we don't need it. We don't need any more rule changes. There's enough every time. Every single time. No more. Just let it go. Let the game sort itself out for a little bit. Stop changing it. The AFL they complain that the game's gotten to this point because they changed the rules so much that it's just gotten this way. If they just left it, things would have been fine. But no, they want to change it every year. Okay, right. Third man up. Why do we get rid of that? What was the point of that? Let's get rid of the third man up rule. Okay. They just change rules for the sake of it. Do this stuff in the NAB challenge, JLT. We don't need to change our game every year. It's hard enough.
We need
to
bring
umpires.
in super goals.
I do like the super goals, but I don't think we need them. Like people talked about last touch, for deliberate outbounces and stuff. Just this is what they should do, right? Don't change the rules for 2 years. Just put all of that energy that you put into changing the rules into teaching the umpires the rules that are already in place. Because these umpires are spending all of their time thinking about all these new rules that they have to remember. They forget how to play holding the ball. It's bizarre. Anyway.
It's true.
You good? You good, Jack?
Yep,
You've got it all out. It's
You're
all
right.
out now?
My chest. Got that off my chest.
There. The world can hear it.
No red cards. And I don't
Do you
think
want
we'll
to say
see
anything to the umpires? Do you want to say anything directly to them? Have you a minute to say whatever you want?
No, it's there's nothing
To
else
the
I can
umpires
say.
that
Oh
listen
no,
to
I will
our
just
podcast.
I will make just one comment just on and this is the last thing I'll say about umpiring and AFL and the Bulldogs for the time being.
For this
until
episode.
next week. When someone like Damien Barrett can influence the result of an AFL match and the umpiring decisions, our game is in a lot more trouble than needing to worry about red cards. So that is all I will say about that. What are we looking forward to this weekend, guys? What's up? What's on the radar? Ash, what do you got?
I'm going to cheat again Wednesday next week. State of Origin 3, the decider. It's going to be interesting. Queensland are fielding their third halves pairing this season. So whether they gel or not will be the big question. Who they're actually going to play at 5'8", we don't know yet. Cameron Muster or Michael Morgan. But yeah, hopefully Queensland come over the line. And
Very good. Very good, Ash.
good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Kieran.
I'm going to steal yours for a quick second.
Yeah, go.
I'm going to steal yours and say the homie Robert Whittaker fighting this weekend. I got so pumped. There was a picture, like a hype picture I saw on Facebook this morning of him stood there with like an Australian flag at a photo shoot. And I was like, man, I'm hyped. We're in. He's going to win. He's going to knock him out. We're good. Let's go.
Excellent.
Go.
Excellent. Yes, that's going to be that's what I'm looking forward to. Robert Whittaker fighting Yoel Romero for the interim middleweight title. This is the biggest moment in UFC combats in UFC for any Australian. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. We've got a red hot chance of someone being world champion, and if he wins this fight, it means we get Bisping Whittaker. We will get that fight. That is going to be massive. So I cannot wait. I've bought the pay-per-view. I'm going to be sitting down, watching it. It's going to be awesome. I cannot wait. So I concur with that, Kieran. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Grandstand Gurus. This has been a product of the Explosion Network. You can find all of our content over at www.explosionnetwork.com. We have Platinum Explosion, the #1 PlayStation podcast in the Oceanias. We have the original Pleasure Explosion podcast. We just recorded the very first episode of South of King's Landing, which is our review predictions Game of Thrones show. So you can check that out over at bit.ly/Explosion Network on YouTube. Check out our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Explosion Network. We've got a community night coming up. We're going to play some Mario Kart 8. It is going to be bonkers. So check that out. Jump in the Discord chat. We've got some awesome things on the horizon, guys, so please stay tuned. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for joining us. You can follow us all on Twitter. Kieran is at your boy Ringo, Ashley is at Ashley Hobley, and I am at Kruse_mate. Please like, subscribe, share us with your friends and with your mother. Until next time, plat plat, keep on grandstanding.
It's time! Beautifully bowled! Sensational! It's over! He's given it! He's given it!